so I don't have much to add. Carin Smuts is a South African architect. She has a practice. She has been working, she will tell you, but maybe 20, 40 years in South Africa. And she's developing a practice around, in English.
Say it in French.
Okay. Une méthode de travail avec beaucoup d'empathie pour les publics qu'elle rencontre et avec qui elle travaille. C'est un des aspects de son travail. Okay, I'll continue in English. It's one. Oh, my English is so bad. It's one.
You can talk in French. I can understand.
Okay, good.
And then everybody can understand.
C'est une des parties de son travail que nous trouvons très intéressante pour vous, jeunes étudiants en architecture. Carin Smuts a eu de nombreux prix en architecture. Celui que vous connaîtrez le plus, c'est le Global Sustainable Award in 2008, en 2008. Et Carin Smuts intervient et enseigne dans de nombreuses écoles d'architecture sur des programmes courts ou longs. Elle vient notamment enseigner assez régulièrement à La Réunion. Et pour nous, c'est un grand plaisir et un grand honneur d'accueillir Carin en enseignement et en conférence.
Merci. Merci. Everything in French. Good. I think I've got one.
No, it's recording.
You have to do this. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Vinicius and Jane, thank you, both of you. I have a lot of respect. I've worked with you and seen the way you also teach and do your thing, so thank you for that. There's another friend, Robert Matthew, who can't be here tonight, but he's the person who originally got me to come to Montpellier in the past, and I was very grateful. The first time was at Pierre Vive. It was a really exciting experience. And then in 2019 was in, I think, the same room here. It was an eco conference. So thank you. I've met a lot of the students, especially the S9 today. We had really, really good time working together. They did it all in English, so that was amazing. That's why I didn't have to take up my little bit of French, very little bit. So I have been working in South Africa, where the education system is Western European. So when they taught me at university, they gave me examples of Italian markets, European buildings, and it was quite scary when you study in an African context and the way they teach you is about Europe and about America. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why we practice the way we do, and I want to call it dreams and spaces, because I think people dream, and if we as architects can turn those dreams into spaces, I think we achieve a lot. So when I could not find any architectural references, I decided to look at literature. And I found this man, he's a Kenyan writer, Watiunga Ngugi, and he greatly influenced our work. You can see Johanni Palasma also had an influence, but Ngugi said culture is a product of a people's history, but it also reflects that history and embodies a whole set of values by which a people view themselves and their place in time and space. That has really influenced the way we work and the way we think. We really think cultural diversity is incredibly important, and it brings about more sustainable, better environments. So also our approach is more of a participatory one, and we really try, where often authorities are very top-down. The government will say, we will build the school like this, we will build the clinic like that, we will build the hospital like that. We try to work in a slightly different way. So our philosophy about sustainability is that it has a social component, an economic component, and an environmental one, and that you cannot separate these three aspects. They really have to be dealt with at the same time. So we've done these workshops in Africa, in America, and in Europe. And the reason why I'm saying this is that people often think because we work in Africa, we only work in poor African communities, and it's not the case. We've worked in France, I've worked at Harvard with architects and planners, and everywhere this way of working, of consultation, works really well. So this is what we did today with S9. So we did a typical workshop of how to get people involved. So we do this exercise where you take a piece of paper, and it's A4, and we cut it in half, and you have to climb through the piece of paper. So you need to think a little bit about that. And then we do these other exercises to get to know each other better. This was my first clients. I was about 22, 23 years old when the university asked me to start working with this group of people and to help them build a workshop. We also worked on a clinic in that same rural community, and here is a typical workshop where we bring doctors and specialists to work with the community and to formulate the vision. So this man's name is Matthew Goniwe. In 1984, when I was 24, I met him just before he was killed, and he asked me to please use architecture to liberate people. So all four of those guys were killed brutally by the South African police in 1984. So these are the buildings in Cradock. Cradock is 8 hours drive from Cape Town. So the red square was the first three buildings. It's a school for little children. And then there was a library and a workshop, and the blue is the clinic, and the yellow is a community center. But we also built 10,000 houses. And the budget for the house was 1,000 euros. So just think how you're going to build a house for 1,000 euros. So what we basically could do was get a bigger plot and just build a kitchen and a bathroom. That was it. And people had to bring their informal structure and bring and do saving schemes to build their houses and extend their houses. This was that very first building, the opening of the school for little children. Then we go to Komaggas. This is close to Namibia, and this was in 1986 when we worked in this community. It's a rural community. There was no water and no electricity at the time when we worked there. The community is Afrikaans, so they don't speak English, and the people on site couldn't read and write. So that you have to think about that as an architect. What happens if you come onto a site and people don't read and write? How do you do your details, your drawings, so that people can build what you have in mind? So here the people wanted that traditional shape of their traditional village or their traditional hut, and asked us to put it into the big community center shape. Just the models, we built very crude models from just brown cardboard. They're not expensive, but we can very quickly show the people what the idea is. So this is very interesting because there were 10 people who built the building, and then there's 2 men with the foreman and the under foreman. They made all the blocks on site with the sand on site. So we really try and use local people and local resources. So the blocks had about 5% cement just to and chalk to hold it together. But otherwise it is all the sand from the site, and those people made all the blocks. The interesting thing is that they were the alcoholics in the community. They were the only people who were not working on the mine. There was a diamond mine about 30 kilometers or 60 kilometers from the site. So everybody else had a job. But these people built the building in less than 1 year. They built a really, really beautiful building. You can see here that the teachers from the high school, the woodwork teachers, they came and they put the roof on. 2 people in 1 week, they put the whole roof on. So it was an incredible experience. Then we went to the spinning and weaving, and we asked them to please make an acoustic hanging, wall hanging for the back wall, so that the money would stay in the local town. This was the opening. You can see there's a water tank at the top where we had a generator and a pump to pump water up so that we could flush the toilets. And at the top level there's a library. Inside there's a little school and a feeding project. So they feed the children and the people in the community who do not have food. and there's a school for little children in it, and then they use it for weddings and functions. And yeah, this is recently, we went back, and you can see they've painted the building and they have put a wall around it, and they're incredibly proud of it because it's really owned by them. It's not owned by a government or a local authority. It's totally owned by the residents. This is a project in Langa, which is about 10 minutes away from our office. And you can see there's, where the red square is, there's a first phase in the front and a second phase at the back. The front is a youth center and the back was a primary school with 1,300 children. So you can just see the housing, it's mostly hostels, and there's some informal settlement on the edge of the freeway. Now it's much, much denser. This is an old photograph. This is probably 2004, maybe before that even. So in 1989, 38 young kids and up to about 30-year-olds killed each other with pangas and with spikes from the bicycles because they said to us they had nothing to do. And that's why they were playing like a TV program. They made their own program and they were just killing each other. So we started meeting, we started getting them every week. You could only come to meet with us if you didn't get stoned or drunk. So they couldn't come in with guns or with knives or anything. They had to leave it at home. And then we started and we worked for 2 years. Every Thursday night, we went to work in this project to get people to shift their minds. So these were workshops. When the building was finished, we carried on working to get them to understand. We worked with psychologists, psychiatrists, teachers, educators. It's very complex. You as the architect cannot work alone. Somebody told me the other night of a process that was a failure, and I said to her, did you do it alone? And she said, yes. And I said, but you can't do it alone. It's far too complex. You need to work with other people. So this is the model. It was an existing hostel, an all-male hostel, and we made a butterfly roof in the middle there that you can see. So here you can just see the opening, the stage, and the way the building can take about 1,000 people in the hall. This is the front of the building onto the street, and there was a school for little children, and then there was a primary school, art classes, cooking classes, ballet. The thing was really buzzing. And a lot of people, we had a career guidance. So we had a library. You could come as a young person and say, I would like to go to college, or I would like to go to university. And then we would help get bursaries and get you to go somewhere to further your education if you wanted to. So a lot of the killing, after 3 months of working, nobody has killed each other in this context, in this gang fight. But there's new gangs. No, you haven't, you're still going to see the rest. There's new people behaving even worse. So here I just wanted to show you the steel. The black steel is the old building, and the red steel is how we made the hall bigger, so that you could actually use the hall as a bigger. They do a lot of indoor sport, they do a lot of bodybuilding, so it's a lot of getting rid of energy because they stay in such small accommodation. Then we made the floor. We got the children to draw the patterns they wanted to see on the floor, and we worked with some artists, and we got the people, some of the youth to make the floor pattern themselves. And then you can just see the floor pattern that was done in the foyer area with paint. So this is the first phase on the left and the second phase on the back. These are the children at the school at the back. It was an unbelievably successful school, and it's just tragic what's happened. So this is the second phase, the school at the back. That's what it looks like. In 2009, a man came to my office and he told me in front of the local authority that he's going to break down that building right to the ground. And if anybody stops him, he will have them killed. So the school had to stop, the dancing, the art, everything had to stop. And the building is much worse now. It's really terribly, terribly sad. And nobody could stop it, not the police, not anybody. So you can see he broke the whole building. And to get steel out, you need a crane. You can't just go and lift a piece of steel. You've got to have a crane. So he was a contractor, and he had a crane and he could go and break the steel out of the building and sell it. So all he wanted to do was to make money. So this is quite close to that youth centre, about a kilometre away. There's Guga Setebe, phase 1 and 2. Phase 1 is a cultural centre and phase 2 is a children's theatre, which we built with students from all over the world. There were about 2,000 students involved. There was Habitat for Humanity sent students. There were people from Aachen and Düsseldorf and from Virginia Tech in Atlanta. So, and some students just arrived, from other universities and other places. So this was the cultural centre. Here's a model that we built, and you can see at the back. I want to just show you. When we did workshops, the older people wanted a traditional hut, and the younger people wanted more contemporary language and more contemporary space. So how do you bring tradition and contemporary together? And we tried that with a cone, which was the result of the process. So here you can see there's a lot of urban interaction. There are very, very few public buildings in these communities, so the urban edge becomes unbelievably important, so that you can really allow people to interact with the building and with the urban edge. And here you can see the front with a very nice mosaic work and ceramics that were done by 20 youth from the community. You can see here it's used by kids and people coming, visiting. This is a Guga Setebe. It's a traditional koza platter that invites people to come and share knowledge. So it is a very significant name to the project. And this is thick. This is like 40 millimeters thick ceramic tiles that was done by a local artist. These are the young people we trained to do these mosaic work, and especially this guy, he's done other projects with me. But he was shot in the head quite recently and killed. So it's really, it's not very healthy what's going on. You can see that guy with a white shirt. He was part of the youth project. He was one of the gangsters that we worked with in '89. And then through training him in how to play marimbas, how to play drums. So now he works with children and tourists. He teaches them marimbas and drumming. And it's actually quite amazing. There's also this economic activity that I spoke of. They paint and make ceramics that they sell to tourists. Before COVID, there were up to 3,000 tourists a day that came through this tiny little building. The building's only 820 square meters. It's a really small little building. Here you can see was the graduation with the people who built the building. All local people were involved. And here you can just see, on some days, we have something called open streets. Then they come outside and people come from all over and people interact. And it's really, this building always forms the central point from where this happens. People come from all over the world and they have interaction. There's sometimes Italian opera in the theatre at the back. There's jazz quite regularly. So it's really a place where people can meet and interact and share. Then the theatre at the back, which we built with the students. You can also look on YouTube. There's some very nice YouTube videos where you can actually see how they made the foundations, how they brought the containers, how they put the roof on. And it's really a nice process. You can see how the students carry the half of the truss. Then in Germany, they built models, they worked on drawings, they made some experiments with materials with their structural engineers. You can see they explored new materials that they could possibly use. Maybe some bottles with straw, and eventually they came to site and they worked with the specialists in containers who helped them sorting the structure out, because the minute you cut a container, you lose structure and the whole container will just collapse. So you have to reinforce the container if you cut a big opening. So here were just some of the students and the municipality who actually they didn't give us one cent. We raised all the money for this building ourselves through a German architectural magazine over a 10-year period. But you can see the two people on the very right are two officials from the local authority trying to take all the credit for and giving little presents to all the students from Germany. So that was, yeah, we had lots of these kind of functions where the municipality tried to get some mileage. This is where we're making the straw insulation. So it was the container, then a layer of insulation, and then a layer of pellets from fruit crates. Here you can just see the students assembling the truss, the two sides of the truss. There you can see the construction with the container as the inner skin, and then the straw, and then on top of it we started with the pellets, and then the roof that sits on top of it. So this is a story about the guy on the left is a 20-year-old who worked in my office, and he was from the university in his practical year, and he actually ran the site, Carlton, and he honestly ran it for 3 months. He managed the other students, and he was only 20. And when the holiday came, he went home to visit his parents, and he was unfortunately killed in an accident, which was tragic, absolutely tragic. So this housing at the back, we managed to get rid of. We managed to get all of those people who were in informal housing also settled into proper accommodation. So there isn't informal housing behind the building anymore. We turned the inside into a workshop, and here you can see the relationship between the two buildings. This is a group called Happy Feet. They dance with gum boots, with plastic boots, and you'll see a bit later that I'm still working with them. We actually use them to raise the money to build this building, and then the local authority won't let them use the building. I'll show you something of this, but that's just the relationship between the two. This is an architectural heritage lecture that somebody came to give in the building, and there were about 250 architects who'd never been into a township in their life, and they came. Bravely, they came. So here we've got another group of people using the building. It's Red Bull. They came to do an entrepreneurial workshop. They worked there for about a week. They got lots of business people and young people in the community to come and talk and learn about entrepreneurial skills. How do you run a business? How are you accountable? How do you secure finance? What are good business principles? And then in 2020, the building burnt because a security guard's blanket was stuck in a heater. And the whole building caught alight, and it was in COVID, so it was very scary. And the municipality allowed me to work with a contractor to redo the roof. They wouldn't allow any students on the site without direct adult supervision, and because of COVID, we couldn't be more than 5 people on site at a time. And then I have a colleague who I got to come and make the straw bale, the straw again for the insulation, with somebody from my office and somebody from his office and 2 people from the community. Here you can see the interior rebuilt, and we used the students from the university in Cape Town. They made the acoustic panels, and we used another group, local group, to make these lampshades because the lights were very harsh. And here you can just see how that interior space is used by lots of people. They just come, school groups, school kids, people come, and it's like a neutral space for people to come and do stuff. And it's just so rewarding to see so many people using the building. Here you can see that same workshop. Yeah, and it's just really nice that it's a space where people can enjoy themselves and interact with others. So here you can see that top space I showed you earlier, which we didn't have a handrail. So this we did last month with a group that works with recycling. They designed that, and it was also funded by the Germans because the municipality wouldn't give us any money. So it's still everything we want to do, any maintenance, we have to try and raise money, and it's just ongoing thing. And the municipality charges rent to groups to use it. But it's extraordinary that they won't give us 1 cent to maintain the building. So it's really an ongoing battle with the municipality. And then this is an interesting project in Nyanga, which is one of the second oldest and probably the biggest township. It's also the most dangerous township. I have 5 friends who've had their kids killed in this area. It's really unbelievably dangerous and violent. So that square is where a multi-purpose centre is. The white and the grey is what we did, and the red was a building that was built before in 1953. And the white opposite it is a bus and taxi rank. Now, when we were building that building, some people were being shot in the taxi rank, and whilst we were having like a site meeting, you just hear shots, and you'll end up taking somebody to a hospital because they've been shot in the leg by a stray bullet coming from some of these gangsters. The taxi gangsters are just terrible. So this man asked me to work on this project. He wanted a 36 square meter workshop for the disabled, and eventually it became about a 2,800 square meter building, and the municipality became really, really more involved, and 10,000 people received pensions. They used to stand outside, and there's a market. There used to be, because now the municipality put a fence around the building, so you can't have this kind of urban. There was a really good urban space in front of this building. So the inside, this was when we built it in 2000, and voila, look what they do. They painted it nice and yellow. So it's because the manager's brother has a paint company, and he needs to have something in the back, and it gets painted with another color. You can see this. Through that red door is a theatre, a proper theatre where they show movies and they have productions. And this is the internal street that links the back. There's some sports facilities, and it links the old buildings and the new buildings together. And here you can see the effect of the yellow. And the courtyards with plants in them, and just the back, there's an outdoor amphitheatre with some nice trees. And here you can see the hall. Thousands of people now don't have to stand in the rain. They come in, they can sit down, and they receive their pensions. The majority of people in South Africa survive on a social grant, and the social grant is 1,000 euros a month. And in a family, only a person over 60 or disabled can get that grant. Then the family maybe has 5 people in the house, and they all live off that grant. It's sometimes the only income. And then there's an added problem. Young girls have babies because they can get a grant for a child. So then they have 5 children, they don't have work, they've got 5 grants. When the child is 18, the grant stops. Now you're sitting with a massive uneducated young kids sitting on the streets, and there's no money, and there's no food, and they just start with new gang fighting. So this is the outside, which you can see there was a lot of trading happening. It was really fantastic. This is the second phase where they do the social grants that they write up. And you can just see there's always people hanging around, sitting in the front. The project is called Zulani Multi-Purpose Centre. Then I just wanted to talk to you about this project where there was a flood. These rivers flooded this whole valley. All the houses were flooded, and this was in 1981. So the government came and helped the white people, but anybody of color was not helped at all. So when we started working there, people started telling stories, and you'll see the lady with the t-shirt with the Saartjie Baartman. She had just gone to the Louvre to fetch the remains and the bones of Saartjie, who was on display in the Louvre for many years. But she came and she fought for it, and she brought it back to Hankie, where she was born, and they put actually a museum and a monument in that place. But she does poetry, and she started asking the people questions, and the man on her left, he saw 8 of his family drown, and nobody had ever asked him what it felt like. So we did a lot of restoration, and that's where we land up working with artists and with doctors and with psychologists and psychiatrists, because you need help. You can't do all of this stuff yourself. You just don't have the skills. So she was listening, she wrote a book of poetry, and then everybody said the water was like a red raging bull that came through the town. So we used the poem to design the building. Here's some of the models. You can see we built lots of models so we can open it, show people, they can comment, they can get involved. They did some drawings initially. And this is some conceptual sketches. Here you can see another model where the red is now coming through and you can see the metal work. There's an artist in South Africa called Willie Bester, and the community really wanted to work with him. He's a friend of the poet, Diane Ferris. So the network is actually quite tight of people who are really engaged in this restoring human dignity in our communities. There were the 2 buildings on site, and again the grey, which is the old one, and the red, which is what we added to do solar protection, to do natural ventilation. We really try and focus on passive design. This is the hall. You can see the louvers and the vents at the top. You can see lots of people receive their pensions. Unfortunately, it's something that's so much part of our society. Then we got a train to put on the first level for a little restaurant. This is something they identified right in the beginning. And 2 kids petrol bombed it. There were 2 11 and 12-year-olds that they were on some kind of drugs, and they petrol bombed the train, so we had to work with them, we had to work with social workers. We didn't want them to go to the police, we didn't want to damage them, they were already damaged. But the other sad thing that happened on this project, the man in the community who was our go between us and the community was a man called David Claster. And he was really a leader and doing really well. And sort of towards the end of the project, his brother stabbed him to death because he was so insanely jealous that his brother was doing so well. So I don't know how to prevent this kind of activity, but I'm much more sensitive and much more careful when I work in a context like this, not to unbalance the situation. Here you can see the young people making with recycled material handrails, with Willie Bester helping them, and these are the beautiful handrails from objects that they picked up on the farms around the building. And here you can just see that red, and again we used the recycled bricks, and we made this sort of train. Imagine the train can leave any time. And you can get up to the middle level with a wheelchair through that ramp. And the corrugated iron on the right-hand bottom is all recycled from the first buildings. So all the material, we recycle everything we can find. We really try. So we keep on recycling, not to waste. We just think there's so much waste in the world that we can try and stop it. Here you can see that recently the building was painted. And because white is the cheapest paint, that's all the municipality decided it's got to be painted white. The red is actually very expensive, but it was a gesture that we really wanted to do right in the beginning. Here you can see there's some rugby fields and trees being planted. The building is used effectively. There's lots of people come there and use it, so it's a really great thing in this rural community. This is a clinic, thousands of people come to it. You can see around it there's one school and the rest is just houses. So there are thousands of people living here and there's no facilities. It's just that the clinic is there and it's a health facility. So here we got people and organized small contractors so that they could build the building. Here we have a director from the government who was not happy to be here, but I convinced him to come and talk to the community about the project. And then the model, and this is a very important person. He's the bricklayer, but he was an excellent bricklayer. So he became the person who made sure the quality of the bricklaying on the site was consistent, even although we used very small subcontractors to do the brickwork. Here is that a young man who was part of our Guga Setebe. He's now training young people to make mosaics. So we always make sure there's some mosaic element at the end of a project, just to make sure young people who are despondent and have nothing to look forward to can try and do something and learn a new skill. And that's the front of the clinic. This is the pre-waiting area where people arrive at 5 o'clock and then they can sit out of the rain and they can wait to go into the clinic at about 7:30. Sometimes people sit for 5 or 7 hours before anybody pays them any attention. So it's a really, really long day. This is the inside, and the chemist is here and the records is there, but these red roller shutter doors can pull down so it can become a community facility. So they come at night or they come on weekends and they do concerts and it's actually really, really nice that the management of the clinic allows this. Here you can see the waiting area and how everything connects, and we try and make use of as much natural light and ventilation. Yeah, just the pre-waiting area and the mosaics. And there was this world design capital in Cape Town, and the building was chosen as one of the buildings in Cape Town. This is a courtyard where sometimes the management don't want the community to dirty the courtyard, so they don't let them play in the courtyard. It's a bit sad. Anyway, this is a courtyard where you learn how to go on sand with a wheelchair and on gravel with a wheelchair. So this is physically, there's a physiotherapist room, there's very good physiotherapy. It is probably one of the best clinics in this region, where people really, really like going to it. They go, the whole family goes, and they get really good care. And I think it's got to do with a mixture of natural light and ventilation and very good management. You can see the outside where people walk past, there's trees, there's gardens, but the provincial government has just put a fence right around the building. So there's this constant security paranoia that sets in. Because there's no doors, no windows really that anybody can break into. And yet they still want to make another layer of security. So that's at night what it looks like. And yeah, sometimes there's some cattle walking around and some sheep walking around. Then I want to show you this because we recycled a lot of building. We recycled a lot of material, and I think it's very, very important. There are 29 units. Eventually we only had 11. It's a nature reserve, really beautiful, 2.5 hours from Cape Town. And these are little bungalows that we developed. It was a woodcutter's village, and we developed these tourist bungalows because people come on bike rides and they come on mountain hikes to see. There's a redwood forest, there's some ponds to swim in. It's a really, really beautiful nature reserve. So we took the little house and we opened things up. We made a carport because it rains and the children can do board games, and they come with their skateboards and they do their thing there. And then there's a troop of baboons. So there are these big baboons, 60 of them. So one night we went there and we wanted to sit outside on the little stoop or balcony, and the baboons started coming around the house, and we realized this is really crazy. So we made what we call a Carin, which is a place to visit. There's a barbecue, but it's totally enclosed so that you are completely away from the baboons and secure. And if they come in, they come and they smash the furniture, they throw the stoves on the floor, they open the fridges, they smash the fridges onto the floor. So they're really hectic. And then this is what it looks like with the main little building. There you can see we opened it up with some double volume. This is what was there. So these are the units that was there originally. We took 10 guys from a nearby community. They took the buildings apart very carefully. We numbered all the pieces, and you can see here are some more of the pieces. And then we reassembled and we reused as much as we could to rebuild the tourist bungalow. And here you can see that's that front sort of Carin where you can make a barbecue and really relax. And you can see we're building inside, we use it as a workshop. There were all local people working, building it. And you can see just through to the others. And here is towards the end. And here you can see all the units. They all have solar water heating, they all have solar voltaic. So it can go totally off the grid. They get their water from the mountain, so this whole village can be off the grid. The other special thing we did here, 3 units are completely accessible. So people in wheelchairs can come here, couples, I've got a friend, him and his wife are both in wheelchairs, and they helped us with the design of those units. So there's one unit which is particularly arranged so that 2 people in wheelchairs can actually move around in it. So this is our studio. So we're in Sea Point, we built it ourselves, and the people in the neighborhood, you can see they spray painted Blikkies door on Ocean View Drive, which means corrugated iron house on Ocean View Drive, which is the name of the road. And then somebody came to spray it out, and then somebody came to spray on top of it. Everybody comes and spray paints on that thing, so we painted it out. But this is our office and our house. This is going up to the office. Here is the inside with the boardroom and the library. And then this is sort of just a central seating space that we have, and you can see the stone that we brought in. And all of this we did ourselves. We really coordinated. The brickwork was done by a man the father of one of our staff with 2 of his helpers, and we really just tried to do as much of it ourselves. There's office space at the top. A friend of ours from Holland flew in, and he's a specialist welder, and he welded that mezzanine that's hanging from the structure. So the space is really cleverly utilized. Merci. Questions? We've got 10 minutes. Yep.
You said that for projects in South Africa, you use bottles and straw. Was it for the walls? And why straw and bottles?
Okay, so in the experiment they did was to make the bottles in the straw. When the students came to Cape Town, they decided they did not want to do that in the building. So they didn't actually do that in the building. But there was a group of students from Nantes called Salga, the Salga Collective. And they built a beautiful wall with bottles in Port Elizabeth, in Joe Slovo. They made a creche for children, and they made an entire wall just with bottles. But that, which I showed you, was part of the process. And when they came to Cape Town, when the reality came, they realized it's not so easy to mix bottles and containers. You maybe have to be more. They simplified a lot of their details.
Hi, thank you. We can clearly notice the change between your first and last projects in terms of probably of money rising, of money founding. I was wondering if there was simultaneously an impact on like less local participation simultaneously with more rising money, because on the last project, the hospital, we can see that you got some professional workers. So I was wondering if with the rise, the increased fundings, you got less and less local participation and more professional workers.
It's actually quite a interesting and a good question, because what happened on that project is that we did use a lot of local people, but we had to train them. What we do is we make 1 square meter, they make a panel of 1 square meter brickwork. And we get to a standard, and if the standard is good, they can stay on site. So with these, we try to make sure that a minimum of 60% of the skilled and unskilled labor is still local. So we manage it and we build capacity. You will find that maybe a carpenter will come from outside, a good carpenter who's got 20 years experience. So that level, it's normally the joiner and the carpenter that will come from outside. But we found that bricklaying, for some reason, local people can lay really nice bricks. So the bricklaying was done very, very nicely, and mostly by local groups that were, like, you know, because we do these blocks, we can give one group a block to do. So if the bricks are a bit skewed, that whole block is a little bit skewed. But if it's consistent, you know, it's not, I don't know, it doesn't have to be perfect. But that clinic was really, really hard work because the government didn't really want us to use locals. So as you say, money comes from somebody and then they control you. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, thanks. I just have a stupid question. You talked a lot about the fact that there is a lot of issue with the municipality and that the fact they don't let people use the building that you built with other people. And I was just wondering why, because you're helping their citizens, so why wouldn't they let them use the building?
You know, I wish I could answer you because I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I can't understand it. But for instance, like if one of the groups who helped us raise the money want to use the building, they want them to pay. Now, these are people who have no money. That's why we could motivate so that we could get money and build these things. And then they say, no, if you want to use it, you know, the Italian consul is paying us 10,000 rand to use it for the opera. So we can't have you coming past here with your little dancers. So it's a very complex, very, very complicated situation.
So thank you for the presentation. It's really interesting. So actually, I was wondering, like, how, like, you seem to be pretty involved in how, like, after the building is done. I was wondering how much you stayed involved in the life of the building and everything, because when you showed this example of the place where there were some accidents and everything, but I was wondering, in other buildings, you were still as involved in, like, forming communities and people still.
Yeah, because our process, we try and empower people. We go back to share the joy of what they've done. So I didn't show you tonight, but we've done a school in another area, and as a result of it, the parents worked with us to do a multi-purpose center. And then one day I just went to look at it again, and they came up to me and they said, oh, we built an outdoor sports area, we built a park without you. And you know, that for me is the best. But that Zolani center I showed you, I went there last month, and it was pouring with rain in the building because the municipality is not maintaining it. So, I mean, that's 23, 24 years ago. So other than the yellow paint, they've done nothing. So I was so shocked. I was in another meeting, so I just went inside. So now I am battling with the mayor, I'm writing letters, I'm getting all my friends to write letters and to just fix the roof. Because they don't do it. They just sit there in the city, in the big office, They definitely have never been. When I spoke to the deputy mayor, he had no clue about the building. He didn't even know it existed. So they have assets because it's on their land, but yeah, it's not the soccer stadium or the rugby stadium where we play international games. Yeah, there they put billions. We've got 5 minutes. I promise you, at 7 o'clock we're out of here. I don't believe in long sessions. We had a long day. Yes, you all had a long day.
Hello. I was wondering, because it's so little payoff, like sometimes your project gets demolished, clearly your life is sometimes at stake, and you have lost friends on this journey. What is it that makes you keep going and doing these projects, even if sometimes it's a dead end, or sometimes you are so heavily rejected by the municipalities or even the community?
You know that I showed the students earlier on, but there's a young man I'm working with at the moment in Langa. His name is Siviwe, and he's 40 now, and I met him when he was 10. And he is now doing what, you know, the kind of work I was doing. And he's training kids, he's using kids, he's getting young kids, maths, science, robotics, and opening the world to them. And the other day when I spoke to him about it, he said, yeah, but don't you remember, when I was 10, I came into that youth center that was demolished, and it inspired me to be a leader. He's got his own business, he's got a travel agency business, plus he works with a community. So that incident alone, for me, is more worth than any money or any other thing. Because if you can participate in just changing someone's life, I think you're already doing something. So I think it's really important. And I had a very nice thing happen with, I'm doing a PhD at a university in the middle of South Africa. It's a very strange place. And we spoke about the burden. How do you've got this burden of doing this stuff. So how do you offload the burden? And some young students, after the professors and everybody blah, 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 talk, some young students in the audience stood up and they put their hand up. And they said, we are now going to take the burden. You don't have to carry on because we will take it and we will do what you're doing. So, there will be people who will be doing this kind of stuff, which I think is really important. And it doesn't matter whether it's here, whether it's South Africa, it's all over the world. It's all over the world. You need to practice, I think, in a way where you don't assume you know and that you can absorb information.